Let's start with why you believe, Chris Ruddy, that the polls are wrong about Donald Trump.
This weekend, Wayne, I was going through some of the polling data that comes out on the president's approval numbers. And they're typically floating anywhere from 42% to 48 or 50%. Rasmussen polls usually has him somewhere around 50%. But every other poll typically has him in the low 40s. The last major poll that was taken was Reuters Ipsos poll, and it showed that he had a 42% approval rating. And at first blush, I sort of accept that as, hey, he's gone through so many negative attacks. No president in modern times has had the negative media attacks this president. So it's actually a good number. And then I'm thinking to myself, let's start looking through the data on this. So I start looking at what they call the methodology. And it was sort of shocking. First of all, it's not likely voters. It's registered voters. And as you know, anybody knows, most registered voters, not all registered voters actually show up to vote. And Republicans tend to vote more in higher proportion than Democrats, or more likely to vote. They're more motivated. And so one of the president's pollsters had told me previously, in likely voter polls, the president usually does 4 to 5 points better. And I believe that is accurate.
Correct.
And it certainly was accurate on election day, where the president outperformed almost all of the polls. So now you take a 40... So as I wrote on my blog, which is on Newsmax for people to see, if you take a 42% approval poll for registered voters, you bump it by 4 or 5 points. In likely voters, you're now at 46, 47. That's pretty darn good. That's pretty close to 50%, which is the magic number I believe the president needs for re-election. But the methodology on the Reuters poll, and I think it's typical of a lot of these polls, and the president has hinted at that, they don't lie, they don't make up the numbers. What they do is they just ask more Democrats than Republicans to
oversample.
They oversample. That's a really good word to describe it. They oversample Democrats. So what was the oversample? 48% of the 961 people that took this poll were Democrats. And Republicans were only 38%. So they gave Democrats a 9-point advantage. That's a huge advantage. So I went and I looked back at the 2018 election exit polls, which actually show you who voted, how they voted, et cetera. And it showed there was only a 4-point spread between Republicans and Democrats. The Democrats had a 4-point advantage, which is more typical. There's slightly more Democratic voters in the country, or people that say they're Democrats than Republicans. That's true in most polls. Why would Reuters give the Democrats 9 points? Because it makes Donald Trump look bad. Had he had a more balanced sample of Democrats and Republicans, I believe he would have gone north over 50. And I think this is true now in most of the polls, and they're underestimating the favorability that Donald Trump has. And it feeds into their narrative, and they keep saying he's unpopular, he's this and that. And I think that the president has some challenges, but I think that he's doing a lot better than the polls are suggesting.
Correct.
But look, the polling, it's a little bit more astrology than it is science with polling. But it's certainly, why would you oversample from what the 2018 election showed as to Democrat versus Republican voting by almost 100%.
Right.
You go from 4 points to 9-point spread. That's over an 100%, increasing the spread by over 100%. But the bottom line is, why is the president so popular despite all the negative media that he's getting? And I think it's the results that he's getting. People, everybody's like complaining, oh, he's doing this trade war with China. He's rebalancing the trade. There was a $600 billion trade deficit. He's saying we got to get the Chinese to spend more money here. He's drawing a line in the sand with them on the trade policy. You know what? A lot of Americans are saying, go for it. Let's stand up for American businesses and American industries. He's standing up to NATO countries. Why are we paying 3% of GDP? Many of these countries aren't even paying 1% of GDP. He defeated ISIS.
Right.
Got the Koreans to back down on the nuclear arms development. And he's doing these things. He's about ready to sign a major deal in the next couple of weeks that will finally remove American troops from Afghanistan. We've spent trillions of dollars on the Afghan war, and we don't really have much to show for it. And this is the only president that said, wait a minute, why are we spending $60 billion a year there? American soldiers, young American men and women soldiers are dying there. It makes no sense. So at the end of the day, they can rant and rave on Morning Joe and other shows, but I think the public is seeing through it.
And you know what? There's a betting site out there, a political betting site run by John Stossel, of all people. And over the years, it's been proven, Chris, that polls are not accurate, but that betting sites are. When people are forced to put their money where their mouth is, and on that site, Trump is a runaway prohibitive favorite to win the presidency over every single Democratic candidate, even though the polls consistently show, in many cases, that he's losing to a Joe Biden, and in some cases, even to an Elizabeth Warren. The bettors don't think so, and I put my money with the bettors over the pollsters.
Well, John Stossel is a great guy. If he's behind it, I would certainly give it a lot of credibility. But, you know, at the end of the day, the Democrats know, I believe the Democrats in Washington read the same polls we do, and they actually read through them, unlike what's going on in the media. So they know the president's position's a lot stronger. That's why the Democratic field for 2020 is so weak. You have Joe Biden. He's almost 80, very gaffe prone. He's making tons of mistakes. People are questioning whether he's going to make it to the end of the race. And then you have either very liberal senators or people that just clearly are not qualified are running. And what we're finding is, we have stories on Newsmax that Comey and others, were clearly politicizing the investigative process to hurt candidate Donald Trump. They opened up these secret wiretaps and surveillance of Trump campaign people during the campaign, which is unprecedented in American history. And they really did it on the flimsiest of evidence, a phony dossier, and other things that makes you wonder what was really at work in this country.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for breaking news and give us a thumbs up. If you like this video, then share it with your friends. Remember, you can watch Newsmax TV live on YouTube. Newsmax TV, real news for real people.